Hello to all the Atlanta United fans. My name is Jurgen Damm, and you are watching Scarves and Spikes.
Oh my God!
Welcome to Scarves and Spikes.
Welcome in, everybody. It is another episode of Scarves and Spikes. Maybe, depending on your feelings on certain things, this might be a little bit breaking news type situation going on.
As we're starting the podcast, minutes before we start the podcast.
We will dive into immensely here in a little bit. We're going to have, you may remember from last year, some of you that know me may know him a little bit more, but my brother-in-law, Tony Leon, who is also the Atlanta United Flags Out host for the past couple seasons, will be joining us in a little bit. Going to talk the breaking news with U.S. Soccer and also Atlanta United, the Open Cup, and everything else. But Sydney, Tommy, what's up?
What's up? What's wrong, Tommy?
Hey, why does Atlanta United make me hate the Open Cup?
Poor guy.
We got to the quarterfinals, and I just felt like I felt dirty watching every single one of the games. Like, they were just so bad. You almost had, hold on, doing the math here, 120. You almost had 210 minutes against under teams and not score one goal.
I know.
It was very close to that. Yeah. Very, very close.
Well, they nicked one at the end, but at that point, we were like, just end it already. And, Rios gave us, or Firmino gave us a little bit of hope at the end, but ultimately, of course, Atlanta United couldn't pull it out. Their U.S. Open Cup is over, and possibly their best chance at a trophy in 2024.
Not possibly. That was the best chance at a trophy.
Barring a miraculous run, Inter Miami-esque run through Leagues Cup in a few weeks. And we'll talk about Leagues Cup in a moment. But I don't know. It's not looking good for a trophy, guys.
So we're going to dive into it. We're going to dive into the Open Cup fiasco. We're going to dive into, in case you haven't heard by now, Gregg Berhalter has been fired from U.S. Soccer. So we will be having a chat about that. Like I said, just a little bit of everything today. So before we get going, obviously, y'all know, go check out patreon.com/scarves and spikes. Go join up on the Patreon, get into the Discord, get into some of the footage and content that we're putting up on Patreon.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Discord's fun. Discord's off the chain. And y'all y'all need to go get you some merch. All right. Like, go to scarvesandspikes.com, go to the shop icon up at the top, easy to find. Just go on the website, it's up at the top. Get you a beer mug, beer glass,
t-shirts.
Currently being used for something a little harder than beer. But yeah, like shirts.
All that good stuff. So
coffee mug, which is super useful. Tommy, you were muted.
Sorry. I said we're working on some new stuff too, possibly.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So
go
get you something. But all right, we're gonna dive into it. We'll just dive into it. I feel like I'll rip the Band-Aid off. Don't want to. And yes, Dylan AmFam Cup 100%. Paulo Neto, who is right now at this moment in time still the club's most decorated player. So, but look, the Open Cup, right? This was it. This was your number one opportunity. Number one in terms of just the numbers behind it and how few games you had to win to get to a trophy. And the quality of the teams. And I'm not knocking USL. I'm not knocking Indy 11. I'm not knocking any of the teams that they played. But this was your easiest path to silverware by far. And you go and you lose 2-1 last night to Indy 11. So what do you, I mean, I guess, what are y'all thinking? What are your initial thoughts now that you've had a little time to stew?
I thought they have a better time of it. Granted, they're missing a lot of players. You have no DPs. Well, one DP out on the field. Your two attacking defensive players are gone. By the way, shout out to Caleb Wiley. You hate to see him go out without a win, but shout out to him. All the best to him with the Olympics, with Strasbourg, with Chelsea, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But it's embarrassing. There's no two ways about it. You can't lose in that fashion to a second division team. And I think we got a little bit too far in the match where they had just the one shot on goal or no shots on target. And, there would be some deficiencies in the attack for the reasons I just mentioned. But, it's just embarrassing. I mean, you can't lose to a second division team, period. Much less in the Open Cup, where, like we just said, is your best chance at a trophy. They just looked uninspired, indecisive. I thought Muyumba had a very below average match. Firmino, I didn't really like him as a number 9. I'm sorry. I understand Rob Valentino's decision to start at number 9 because he had very limited options at striker. Rios played the other night against RSL, so you really had not a lot of choices. But outside of that, you didn't have a lot of attacking options on the bench. Silva got the night off, which you kind of understand because of the match compression, but yeah, just not good enough from Atlanta United. And you can't lose these matches. This is 2 years in a row where they've lost matches to teams that they should very well beat on their own stadium, on their own turf. So unfortunate, embarrassing for a club of this stature to lose this match, even with the reduced personnel in the attack. And I don't know. That's all I got for now.
Flashbacks of Memphis last year.
Exactly. But
so I'm gonna jump up here on Ben's comments, and not even that big of a chance nonetheless. Away match against an MLS team for the semifinal and a likely final against LAFC. We had no chance. The reason why I thought this game was so big was because the next game, you hopefully would have had reinforcements come in by then, right? The transfer window would have opened.
Yeah.
You would have been able to bring players in, and who knows what happens. I mean, Miami last year was able to bring in a bunch of players at that window. I'm not saying we're bringing in a Messi here, but you're going to be a better team, hopefully, at that time. And that's why I think I was so frustrated about this. And the starting lineup, I guess I wasn't that upset about. When I looked at it, I said, okay, I this is not the worst. However, it was the reserves that were upsetting me. Because if you're in this situation, yeah.
100% Edgar.
If you're down, you might have to bring some players in, right? And I like Brennan. Brennan had a great opportunity there at the header. But still, Brooks Lennon has played way more games before last year. He had one day off, and that was the decision day, right? So
Yeah.
He's had one day off. What is wrong with putting him out there and just saying, hey, if we're in a situation where we need to come back and win here, we're bringing you in. Same with Silva. I get it that you have a game against Montreal, but I feel to your fan base, and I don't know how the club looks at everything, I feel that you owe the club or the fans an opportunity to get excited about this team. And going into a semifinal on the road, I think that would have been huge for this club. It would have been huge for the fan base. Again, it's on the road. I understand that, but the fans would be really excited to be able to look forward to this, in a couple months, right? Like, yeah, this season's not great. Who knows what happens with Leagues Cup, but we still have a semifinal that we can do it. We're playing Indy, I understand, but you need to leave some better players available just in case you run into the situation you did last night.
I don't know if I'm too bothered by Lennon not playing. I was a little surprised because Tommy, like he said, he always plays, but I don't know if I'm too bothered by that. I mean, Lennon, granted, he can't put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, he's not a striker. He's not a midfielder. He'll give you quality on that side of the pitch, of course. But
gives you chances creates opportunities, which we had hardly any. It felt like
sure, but you have to put your trust in guys that can play, the guys that are out there, and I don't think I'm not dumping on your point, but just the players you have out there have to perform. They have to put it on themselves to perform. I'm looking at Saba coming up the pitch with opportunities in front of him, and inexplicably he decides to cut it in field. Essentially, you're erasing the chance. You have Firmino fluffing his lines right in front of the goal. You have Liam Ba with a heavy touch on a pretty simple pass from Ronnie Hernandez. It goes the other way on a counter, and
they get dunked on. Just say it.
Yeah, exactly. Indy scores. Like little things like that, those moments that come up in the match, those can't happen. Like, granted, maybe if Muyimba does hold on to that ball, maybe it's a different story. But I mean, it's a simple pass. You have to hold on to that ball. Like, you have to make better decisions in the final third. So it's not like there's anything new with this team that we haven't discussed already. But at the same time, the players that you have on the field have to perform, have to just step up, have to rise to the level of the occasion. And again, this is inexcusable against a second division team, whether or not you have two attacking DPs or not. You have to beat these teams. And again, it's not all down to Lennon. It's not all down to one player, but the players out of the pitch have to perform, and they didn't do it.
So devil's advocate, I'm kind of in between, right? And real quick, just for people listening after the fact on the podcast, on the audio, Edgar said, you got to bring the type of energy to match the energy those USL clubs are bringing.
Yeah.
Because playing an MLS team is their biggest game of the year. You have to match that and overcome it. Which
Indy had nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing to lose.
That's what you see in the Open Cup. And that's why I've preached this, especially over the past calendar year since the whole Open Cup fiasco started with, them potentially getting rid of it in MLS and everything else. But like, it is like this is the one in a country that does not have promotion and relegation. This is the opportunity for, a fourth division side to play an MLS team at some point. Of course, it's not as common as a USL side playing an MLS team, but like it happens, and it has happened, and it'll continue to happen.
Or an amateur team.
Exactly. Even an amateur team. Like that's what makes it so fun to me. That's just my opinion. But regardless, you're in the tournament. You know that those teams that you're playing against, if you're an MLS team, they are out for blood.
Yeah.
And you cannot go into this.
In the case of Stian Gregerson, literal blood.
Yeah, literally got smacked in the face. You can't go into it.
That guy never is going to play an Open Cup ever again.
No, he's like, dude, this freaking pitch and this tournament is cursed. Cursed. But no, to go back to what y'all were saying, playing devil's advocate, this is, I feel like I've been talking like weird tactical coaching stuff a lot over the past couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it. No, I'm not gonna say pragmatic. I'm going to say I did. Yeah. So, all right. Y'all's example, right? Lennon, and then you talking about Saba. To me, this is just the way that I look at the game in a lot of ways. And I forget, there's a coach out there that has mentioned this too. And I forget who it was. But anyway, this game comes down to the individual connections between players. That's what the chemistry is that we hear that word chemistry a lot. We've heard it a lot over the past 4 years. Chemistry is built up from repetition, from on and off the field time together. And just, there's some intangible stuff there that you just have to have as a teammate. Brooks Lennon and Saba, they've been pretty good. relatively speaking, right? Caleb and Shonda, maybe not the same degree, right? But I think if you were going to go into this match and you knew that you were going to play up the wings, which is what Atlanta United does anyway. That's how they build up. That's how they attack into the final third. Once they get into the final third, it's not the best lately, especially, but they can get into the final third with the best of them. But instead, you have Saba on the right-hand side with Ronald Hernandez as his fullback, his wingback behind him. And that has never been a relationship that we have seen foster. It has never really developed. I don't know what it's like in training. I've never seen them two really work together in the training sessions that we've seen. But I think if you were going to go into this, like you have to have one foundation on your pitch, knowing that you have to rest guys for Montreal. You have to have a foundation somewhere, and it can't just be your center backs. It can't just be Stian and Abram, because they're not going to score you goals. You need to have some pairing somewhere on the pitch that has the potential to score goals. And it's just not having Brooks Lennon back there and then putting in Ronald. Ronald has his own skill set that works in some situations. But you could tell last night, like they were just not on the same page at all. And it just never felt like they were working together really well. And I feel like having Brooks Lennon there, even if 60 minutes, right? I think that would have changed the entire layout of the game, especially in that first half, because I think they would have been a lot more dangerous.
Do we think that, and Valentino's never been in this position before, right? Do we think that it was just maybe a little bit of naivete, thinking that, okay, I can afford to give Lennon the night off, I can afford to give Shandy the night off against a second division opponent and expect to win? Is that what happened? Or, is it just a matter of, okay, I got to keep these guys fresh. I got to keep these guys healthy because we just had a match at the Rocky Mountains at altitude, and we have a very quick turnaround, very little recovery, and I can't risk getting these guys injured because they're so important to my season. I guess the big question is, which is the case? But again, I go back to the players that are on the field, the players that were selected for this match have to perform. You had Rios out there, you had Saba out there, you had Jay Fortune out there, Muyumba, Dion Gregerson. These are players and others that are consistent starters for your team, save Fortune, but he's got significant minutes off the bench. These are players that you can turn to time and time again in MLS play, and you expect better performances from these players. Again, I go back to Muyumba, just a tough performance from him. Gregerson was decent. Wiley, I really liked. We'll talk about Wiley again in a little bit. Rios, I'm sorry, but yeah, just as a whole, it wasn't good enough. And I understand what you're saying, Tyler. I'm not disagreeing with you, but the players that are on the field have to perform, and they
100%.
didn't do it.
100%. And I totally get that. I'm trying to think of and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, right? Like it's easy to go back and say, well, you should have done this. Sure. I just think, and I see, folks in the chat, Dylan, and a handful of others going back. Like it's easy to say, yes, you should have just thrown out your prime starting 11. But I mean, that's the thing too. Right now, this team doesn't really have a prime starting 11. Like they're a ragtag crew with all the changes that have been going on. I think had you gone into this with really anybody else, a much stronger lineup, and then absolutely pooped the bed in Montreal, yes, the stakes aren't as bad, but sure. I don't think anybody we would be having a slightly different conversation, but not much, because people would still be pissed off. They would have said, well, why didn't you rest anybody for the Open Cup? Not going to make everybody happy, ultimately.
Nobody cares about Montreal. Nobody cared about Montreal at all. Sydney, you're making a face. No, they don't. They want a They want to be in a semifinal. That's what they want right now. Go to Twitter. Go to the hole that is Reddit. I try to only go in there once a year, but the hole that is Reddit. If you're a Reddit person, I apologize. Don't yell at me. People didn't care. People don't. The regular season, people feel that it's over. Okay, and I know we were just in a spot here where we were in a playoff spot for a couple, a week there, in the 10th spot. They don't see this turning around here, okay, with Rob and the transfers here. It's going to be very hard. The regular season's there. The fans wanted to get to the semifinals. That's what they wanted. You need something here because you just keep, since 2020, you have just been struggling and struggling, and the fans have been sitting there waiting for something good to happen. And even if it's the smallest thing of getting into the Open Cup finals, and either you're traveling to LA, which most people assume it's going to be, or LA comes back here for the rematch, that place is going to be packed. Their fans are going to be excited, right? And it's something, just something. Maybe you could go buy a championship hat. Maybe go buy a championship scarf. It's something that gets you through until February when you get your new manager, you get your new DPs, and you're there. And they did not take it seriously. Brooks Lennon played in the last game, in the last Open Cup game. He came in late. He subbed in. He missed the penalty, but still, he came in and he helped that team survive that terrible Charleston game, right? And you just needed this. I think, and I see other people, or at least I'm not the only one that feel like I'm crazy here, because I felt like if it's in a month, I think that's when the next game was in a month. All I'm thinking about for this next month is, oh man, what are we going to look like for the semifinals? Can we go on the road and win this big game to get to a final? We haven't talked about getting to a final in forever, but that would have been cool. That would have been something cool for all of us to be excited about. And yeah, and I know we got to a playoff game, last year, and that was fun. But still, this would have been cool to be one step away from a final, and you didn't do it. And again, I respect the starting lineup there. I didn't think it was terrible, but you needed a backup plan in case things went to crap. And like you said, Tyler, Ronald Hernandez and Saba were not working out right. You have to make a change. And I looked at the reserves and said, there's nothing here. I don't think there's enough here in a situation here. Indy was bunkering. It was not good. We weren't creating any chances. The battery game was more exciting to me because at least you were getting, it was back and forth. I think that's what we were talking about on Spaces yesterday. It was back and forth. It wasn't back and forth. It was just a bore fest for, 70 minutes until all of a sudden we start trying to pick it up and score. And I don't remember what the own goal time was there, but it was
85th minute or something.
Yeah. Then you start having a couple chances here. But again, I'm frustrated with how they handled that. And I said this last game too, and we got through penalties, and I was like, okay, I watched 120 minutes of that and watched an exciting penalties. Okay, I survived that match. But I still said after that, I think they screwed up. I still think that they should have put more into that game. They didn't. They survived. They played with fire again, and here we are. I'm pissed off and I'm ranting. I'm sorry. I concede the floor.
I'll hit this real quick because I know we got to get Tony on here in a second. I see where you're coming from, and I definitely agree with you about the bench. I think it was very deficient. That's the balance that coaches have to take, right? Because of RSL, because of Montreal coming up. That's a balance you have to take, and none of us are coaches. None of us can read the mind of Rob Valentino, but. I feel like you're kind of in a rock and a hard place, weren't you? Because you have, again, that match compression that we talk about all the time. We talk about it.
Rob's been in a rock and a hard place since the moment he took
No,
it.
sure. No, I get it. But, for permanent MLS coaches, they have to face this situation every single year, right? And I think the best coaches are able to make those decisions based on, okay, what's the best decision for my team, not just tonight, but moving forward to the rest of the season. And again, that's why I asked, is it a little bit of a naivete on Valentino's part, having never been in this situation, to balance fixer congestion in the matter that he had to balance it out against Indy 11? Or is it just a matter of something else?
I mean, I think you got to give him more credit than that. I think he's smart enough to know, but also the players have to do better.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So,
100%.
Yeah, we've set the table. All right, we've set the table. There's a lot of emotion going on here. I'll take a quick second. Y'all go again, scarvesandspikes.com, get you something, get you a beer glass, get you a coffee mug, get you a shirt, hat, something. Go to the website, go to Patreon, sign up, come join the Discord and all. But with that being said, we've all had our little hot takes and our rants for the day. And we're going to
I'm not done.
I know you're not done, but
I've got more.
Piggyback, and we're going to bring in Tony, Leo.
Hey, I'm glad
you're
doing it. Like I said in the chat, keep that same energy because, wow, there's been a lot. To just piggyback off of what you guys have said, I'm sorry to gang up on you, Sydney. I'm on the Tommy camp here, and I just think going in, looking at the end of the season, I mean, this is, let's be honest, this was the easiest way to get to a cup. This was the easiest way to get to CCC. And for me, I would have cashed in all my chips to potentially raise that cup or at least get to a final there, then figure out whatever is going to happen at the end of the season, because I just don't have the utmost faith in this squad moving forward. Not trying to sound like a soothsayer or somebody, forecasting my shot here, but kind of like I said a couple podcasts ago, the live when I was filling in for Tommy, which I'm happy to do anytime. I feel like a lot of people confuse us. Just looking
a little bit of, hey, what happened to Tommy?
Yeah, even family members confuse me with you. So I don't know if you can grow your beard the same length, Tommy. Let's work on it. This way
I can do it.
Chip in.
As long as it doesn't make stupid bets anymore and then have to shave it.
But no, what I was saying a couple pods ago was just that I feel like we're asking, and we's, it's like they, right? It's generic, whoever we and they are. But basically, we were asking too much, I feel like, of the younger squad being called up for, them to fill in the blank that has been this season, whether it is trying to salvage the rest of it to potentially win in the U.S. Open Cup, or even looking forward, you get rid of Almada, you get rid of GG, and you're, like you said, you're not necessarily going in with Silva or looking at Lennon and saying, like, hey, how many minutes can you give us? Because we're going to take all of that, just because I'm not necessarily looking at this squad as it currently exists and expecting the most out of it. I think it's fair to say a lot of Atlanta United fans aren't looking at the squad after it's been kind of disassembled. We've gotten rid of a manager here and there, that we're going to be, a title contender. But when this is your only opportunity reasonably to get one, I think you do everything you can. You do the Tyler Adams thing. Hey, can you play 45? Because that's what we want, our best people going in with as much time as they give us. And I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody here. I think Rob Valentino was tasked to do, like you said, Tyler, like a crazy job. But it does kind of suck when you fall flat, and not only falling flat, but you're falling flat to a secondary squad, for lack of better words. But the way that I look at it, it's almost similar and more reminiscent of, you have these Euro guys coming into the NBA that are professionals. It's very similar, professionals at a teenager year, whether it be 15, 16, 17, they're pros playing up against grown men.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like when they make the leap in the transition, they're able to kind of more so dominate in the NBA, because when you're going up against all these other rookies and stuff, they've had the experience and the legs to do that. And I know you could argue that when it comes to football as well, but you look at Indy 11, again, grown men ready to go up against boys that, like you said, Tyler, this is the tournament. This is its oldest time, that it's any given Sunday, to use other football terminology, where you need your best and your brightest going at the, at these matches, so that you can potentially exceed, because look what happened. You got grown men just bullying boys off the pitch.
Coming in hot. I like it.
Energy. Like I said, we're here. I'm ready for all the smoke, which, I don't like to celebrate people getting fired, but we have to pour one out.
We were gonna get to that at some point, I'm sure.
Let me. I got to refill my glass. I need
We
to.
got to pull one out.
So, Sydney, to your point, though, I will say, looking when you think about Atlanta United and you look at the standings, yes, they have 24 points. The 7th seed is 27, right? And Montreal has 23. So you're really just a point ahead of them. And there's obviously still an opportunity here. Right now, you've got your next 2, potentially, probably 3, realistically, MLS games where you're not going to have the Giakoumakis and Almada replacements, right? Technically, they could come in for the crew game, but this probably realistically not going to happen, right? The government and getting a visa in, even if we complete this today, they're probably still not going to be here. So you've got Montreal, which, yes, it's if I'm gonna call the Toronto game a must-win game last week, then we need to call this Montreal game a must-win, right? I got to be fair. So I'm trying to make amends with you here, Sydney. But then after that, you've got 2 more games. You've got home against New York FC, who's been playing extremely well, and then you also then have at home against the Crew, which is gonna be a very, very hard game. You could technically, if you don't have the next 3 games finish how I think a lot of people are going to finish, you could be in the wooden spork that I called it, right? Because the wooden spoon now is going to go to San Jose. It's probably going to go to San Jose. We thought it was going to be New England. New England at least woke up, but San Jose's got it. So the second worst team could be the wooden spork. Trademark Scarves and Spikes. With that, though, we have an opportunity to be in that position by time Leagues Cup starts here if we just keep not doing what we're supposed to do here. So I don't know. I don't know how the club looked at it. I was curious if anybody asked him about that there, about the lineup and why he did what he did. But I'm sure the answers weren't going to be exactly what we wanted.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, right? Like going into when you talk to Rob, his and Pineda, to be fair, like the coaching staff, they're never going to come out and just be like, they're not going to get on here and have a conversation like we're having right now.
Yeah.
That's not the point of a press conference. They're not going to go like into their deep philosophical thoughts and say like, well, this is, kind of what I was thinking, like everything else. Rob is, to be fair though, he's down to earth and he said, it wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to feel sorry for us. We have to be better. I mean, as a coach, all that makes sense. And you just, as a fan, you have to hope that behind the scenes, he's figuring something out because you can't go into the Leagues Cup break, quote unquote break, sitting much lower than you are to make it somewhat easy on yourself to then come out of it with hopefully a DP, if not 2, to then make a run to at least the playoffs. It's not easy. It's not, you're not doing yourself any favors by not, Sydney, being pragmatic in the next handful of matches. So, I know, right? But it's a crappy situation though. Going back, like Tony, what you said, what we've all said, like Rob's in a crappy place, man. Yeah. And you can't put much of this on him.
Right.
So speaking of coaches, I
already poured it out.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Patrick, I got to give a quick shout out to Patrick at the live show, the most recent one when me and Tony were there. Patrick gave the best start to a USA chant that I think I've ever heard. It was phenomenal.
Nice.
Got the entire bar going. Some people might have looked a little uncomfortable, but they did it anyway. And that's the sign of a good capo. So I appreciate it. But Berhalter's fired.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Oh, you want me with this?
Yeah, you dive in. You dive in, buddy.
Chomp it. I never try to demand anything, especially from this group right here. But I was begging Tyler to get on this podcast today, not even knowing the news that this was happening, but especially the way it all went down, which we'll get into. Chomping at the bit after that Panama loss, and then you're looking at going up against Uruguay, which, let's get real, I didn't have many high hopes for that result. But that being said, I don't know if it was Jesse Marsh that coined the signature win thing, but basically this would have been, if any opportunity, this would have been the opportunity for a signature win. Going up against Uruguay with everything that you're looking forward to as far as staying in the tournament on home turf, that's huge. And to see the result go the way that it went, and not only the way that it went, you're hearing reports of him pointing, hey, 1-1 Bolivia, Panama. You're not seeing the onus being in your hands, like, hey, no matter what, who cares what everybody else is doing? It's do or die right now. So all in all, I poured the beer. I'm happy of the decision, but this was a decision that I felt like, and why I even spoke to it in the live podcast, I don't think I'm saying anything new. When we looked at Triple G being our manager, how long is this going to last? Given the same results, it's, the definition of insanity. Nothing changed. We didn't go up a leg. We didn't learn anything new about the squad, about the formation, about the manager, about any type of tactics. And yet we're going up against harder competition in Uruguay, which that's always going to be there. I think it was a blessing in disguise for us to get out and get grouped. I didn't intend on kind of calling the future here when I said, hey, what happens if Jesse Marsh goes on with Canada in a harder group, and then even wins a game after that, and then we get grouped, especially knowing that this is the man that you turned down.
Yep.
And then this is a man who basically just got the job in a hard group and managed to get out of that. I think you look at all the signs on the wall here. This was long coming. Now, again, in the way that USA announced it and has done this whole thing, it's been messy from the start. It has been really messy from the start. The way things ended from World Cup, obviously, that's been talked at, through the ground. But even here, I felt like Drake, with the back-to-back lyric. I waited 4 days. Where y'all at? There was no announcement of anything after the result, after we got grouped. It was silent. And to kind of go in Triple G's corner, I kind of feel this was a saltier way of doing it than them kind of talking amongst themselves, putting out a press release, doing something quietly, again, amongst the U.S. Soccer Federation, and just, hey, we've parted ways. But to then go and say, major announcement about this man's future pending next week. And I don't know. I conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat kind of alarm went on. I was like, the only reason why I would do this, I don't necessarily think U.S. soccer has the best PR when it comes to these type of, conversations, is because, again, you're kind of putting Triple G on an island, and you're also putting whatever expectation after that to be even honed in even more with the microscope. Because for me, I'm like, I'm only doing that kind of announcement if I've got a superhero coming in to replace him. Hey, we're going to make our announcement next week. And the reason why we did all this hoopla was because, boom, here we go. Now, I know this is all kind of still fresh and still developing, but it just was really odd to me that they would say, do this in this manner. I think they should have just released him. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, fire me in the locker room, man.
Right.
The
Yeah.
moment the game's over.
They put him out there, and I'm like, why? Did they put him out there to see the fan reaction? Did they put him out there to see, because even the pundits don't even have your back at this point. But yeah, it's like, why did they float it the way that they floated? It was all just kind of like, it was just a little shady. I wouldn't have done business that way. He needed to go, in my opinion. But to telecast to the whole world, hey, we're firing this guy in next week. Just
on the next
know that.
episode.
Or if we don't, everybody's going to be like, why did you fire this guy? You know what I mean? Like, it was just a lose-lose no matter what for GG.
You needed happiness. You needed happiness because everybody's been tweeting. You see people sending phone numbers, the phone numbers to the office of the United States.
Right.
Call them. Here's Biden's phone number. Why don't you call him and let him know that we need to get rid of Berhalter? It was so much over the past week. I almost just went to the mute button just to try to get rid of U.S. Soccer Twitter. which is probably something I should just do long term anyways.
Do it
but-
anyway.
For your own
Right.
mental health.
But right, I mean, but like the way they did it, like everybody's cheering, right? The Twitter is happy for the next 24 hours until they make their decision.
Yeah.
I think with that, I mean, I wasn't rooting against. The only reason why I rooted for Berhalter at the time was because I really thought he got screwed over by the whole Reina, whole issue there. Like I didn't want to see the guy not get the job because
Real quick,
the yeah.
I want you to finish your thought. The fact that Gio Reyna went on to the Instagram post and liked
Yeah.
it like 10 minutes after it was posted. I'm sorry. Anyway,
That's all you need to know.
yeah.
Like I didn't want to see the guy not get rehired just for the fact that a friend of the family or whatever is leaking information out there, and that's why the guy gets screwed over. Absolutely not. But the immaturity of the United States over the past couple years, right? I mean, you had the red card against Panama, and then was it Dest that got a red last year?
Yep.
I look at that, and I might be overreacting. This just might be a terrible take, but like you need your guys to be mature at this level here. You can't be screwing up games, especially in a three game round here, where you could screw things up big time by losing one game, which that's obviously what happened in Panama. You need to have these guys ready, and I think you need the respect of the players need to respect the manager as well. I know that there's stories out there that they are all rooting for him and they're all comfortable with Berhalter. I don't think they need to hate. I saw that those takes like, oh, you need to hate your manager. I don't believe that's a thing here. But I do think that there's someone that needs to come in and really get the full respect.
Yeah,
of
you have to
these
garner
guys.
respect.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
end of it for sure.
But yeah, you see these two Reds, and I guess it's technically a short amount of time because you got so many breaks in between. When you're playing, it's just I look at those two and say, come on, someone's got to keep these guys calm.
Yeah.
History repeats itself, or at very least it rhymes. And that's what I was, alluding to when you're looking at the definition of insanity, because what different could you show us that this was going to end up any other way? Now, nobody, I don't think, saw a red card in the situation. I think we all called that live podcast and, figured it would be a 2-0 victory again, at least. And that was, and I feel like, even though somebody like myself, but I feel like a lot of fans, after World Cup is World Cup. You know what I mean? It is high stakes for everybody. The United States, we're still not at that point where we're expected to perform. Even take Copa America. It took this group being somewhat passable the whole way. Why we even gave beyond a shadow of a doubt that we would get out in the first place. Because let's be frank, I think if we were given a similar group like Canada, you could say that, hold on, this might be a little trickier for us to get out. This might be a little harder. But you have Bolivia and you've got Panama. And, World Cup, like I said, I feel like he gets a pass in that regard. But I think it should have been just an amicable, thanks for the memories from that moment then. And I hear what you're saying. I feel like a lot of people hear what you're saying when it comes to the whole Gio Reyna situation with Claudio Reyna and all that. That was messy no matter what. But I don't know. I find it hard to believe that the United States Soccer Federation saw all that go down the way that it did and said, oh, well, we can't let him go out on that note. So let's hire him for another, stint. Yeah. Again, you didn't show us anything new information-wise to suggest that you could go from getting out of the World Cup to seriously advancing to the next World Cup. I mean, again, you look at what happened in Copa America, where there just should have been a new batch, just a new kind of energy to kind of come into that locker room. And now it didn't happen, and it is what it is. Here we are. But again, like to see Berhalter just kind of, you know what, we lost a man, but we're not going to fight for this one. Let's just anchor in for defense and hope that nothing happens at the end of 90 minutes or the 75 plus that he had after that red card. And then what I said with Uruguay, where it's like, you can't keep doing that. And if anything, I don't know why. It just, to me, again, hindsight, especially now looking at where we are, I feel like if you're Berhalter, I feel like if you're any of these coaches, I mean, we know we lost Pineda here recently, but it's like, don't you have, I don't know, don't you have the, you hear some mummerings, you see the writing on the wall a little bit to say, you know what, this might very well be my last game. I'm going to put 6 strikers out in the field. You know what I mean? Like, just to really go for it. And you still didn't even get that. So again, we're at a loss in a manager, but I feel like we're at a loss in time as well, because the clock's ticking. You know, we're 2 years out, and this could have been same result. Everything could have happened, but this could have happened under a new manager where they at least get a chance and a shot at really seeing serious competition in a serious tournament to try different tactics, to mix it up, to better prepare themselves for 2026. But now we're looking at basically the next Jesse Marsh. Hey, I know you just got this job. Go out and get out of a group for us. And that's just too much pressure that you're putting on the next guy coming in.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't think I'm overstating things when I say this, but this is the biggest hiring decision for the U.S. men's national team in its history.
For sure.
Even bigger than, after, the previous manager was sacked. Because you're looking at 2026, you're hosting the World Cup on your home soil for the first time in over 3 decades. You have a first division league where you didn't have one in 94. You have the game having grown so significantly in this country, in this continent, since 1994. You have what's being referred to as the golden generation, with so much young talent having been exported out to Europe, and just, how they're performing is another issue, but the fact that they're being sold to Europe, the fact that European teams are seeing quality and these players, enough quality in these players to bring them in, tells you a lot about them. So this is just the biggest hiring decision they've ever made, because if you bring in the wrong person, especially with the talent, and nobody's disagreeing that there's talent on this team, in this program. Nobody's disagreeing with that. But it's been wasted under Berhalter. It's been wasted going to Copa America. Yes, he got to the World Cup, but you hope that the performance would have been a little bit better. Now you're going to 2026. You don't need to qualify, of course, but now you're going to 2026.
We're lucky.
You're gonna be filling stadiums all across the country. And if you stink it up, imagine what damage that will do to this game in this country, because now you're going to have to go through this whole entire song and dance again. You have to get this right. You absolutely have to get this right. And you think of the pressure on Matt Crocker to get this right, because now this is his job on the line.
That's what he was hired for.
Yeah, it's what he was hired for. And now we see who they bring in as a club. Is it, Pochettino, who I see floated out there? Is it
Steve Cherundolo is another
Cherundolo? Is it Wilfred Nancy? Is it somebody else? I mean, you can't afford to just mess about with this hire. You have to do absolutely due diligence upon due diligence to make sure the person you bring in is an absolute stone cold fit with this program. If it's not, you're going to risk doing more damage than you did with Berhalter.
To kind of piggyback before we start throwing names out here, to kind of piggyback on what you said, Sydney, and almost another shot at Berhalter. I don't know those listening if you've seen it in the media, but you hear this echoing of, we did more with less before, right? So you're talking about the golden generation, not even just personnel. You think about the facilities, the flight arrangements. Now, what's going to come in 2026 and thereon after, with now having base camp here in Atlanta, it's going to be even on a whole nother level. But still to this day, versus what it was, 8 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, what have you, they've had so many opportunities. And Tyler, you've said it before, definitely credit Triple G for getting in there and negotiating with these dual citizens, right? Helping bringing in advanced talent. However, throwing it back to my boy, Jesse Marsh, they did it with a dozen MLS players.
Yep.
So what good do the dual citizens bring us if they don't have that cohesion that you had back with the Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan days, Tim, Howard days, where you had a lot of guys local to the soil here and did, again, more with less expectations. Again, and it's so wild to say because this golden generation, although having more expectations than the prior generations, I feel like by what? A half of a metric? You know what I mean? Because still nobody thought that they were going to go super deep. America is still that underdog in comparison, which I think is the spot that we should relish at and love being in that group right there, that whole underdog category. But Jesse Marsh did more with less in a harder situation. And I'm going to stop ranting on that guy. I love the opportunity for him. But also looking at it, although I just gave credit to him and I still want to, I don't want to kick a man while he's down, but you look at manager for U.S. men's national team versus manager for, Canada. I feel like if you were to track it back, Jesse Marsh has done more for American soccer, or has at least attempted to do more for American soccer than Gregg Berhalter. Because you look at his time in Leeds, that broke him up. But he tried to assemble a good bit of the men's national team on Leeds, just on his Premier League team, just so they could, again, have that cohesion. These guys know each other. They've been playing since they were teenagers together. Let's try to get this going so that when we do send them back over to play for the flag, it's done starting in a first 11, but then also, again, it's not just you guys, getting to catch up on summer camp activities. It's you playing day in and day out with each other. So that's why I stand for Jesse Marsh to stand Marsh, right? But it's because of that. It's because you could look at one guy who's really put all of his eggs in the basket that's not even feeding him anything, which is crazy to me. We should have given that guy the job, but alas, here we are.
Yep. Tommy, what you got?
I know a guy for the job.
Who's that?
Gonzalo Pineda.
He already lives in Atlanta. The center's here. I don't know if he's still here or not. Let's bring it.
Hilarious.
Hey, let's ride. Let's ride.
Yeah.
If you ever see me making a stupid face, I'm looking up something stupid to put on the
We're gonna
screen.
meme. I love it.
Just wait.
I'm just like, shut up, Tony. I want to put the picture up.
I'm passionate. I'm ready. I got the beer in me. Let's go.
I want to click share. Let me share the button.
So here's we kind of touched on this, and I just want y'all's opinions on it. You look at the record that Berhalter had, and you would think with the numbers that he put up in the time that he was over the men's national team, he would have a little bit more of a peaceful exit than he has had, right? But I think it was one of those situations where had he gone out in 2022, despite all the Claudio Reyna stuff, I think he could have had his just desserts and stepped out, and it would have been like, all right, cool, you did the job. But then when he came back, it felt like, that extra album that you never should have came back and released, right? Like it just didn't work out. 44 wins, 17 losses, 13 draws. Like that's a pretty phenomenal record, actually. He had the, Nations League titles in 2019, 2020, and 23, 24, and then the Gold Cup back in 2021. Of course, made it out of the group in the World Cup. What do you look at in terms of the legacy that he left? I know we can be negative and say, well, we were sick and tired of it at this point, but what do you look at in terms of what he did for the Federation?
It's the dual nationals for me. Bringing in those other guys, Balogun, Des, and
Yep.
I like that. For me, that at least opens the conversation. Now, to play devil's advocate, I feel like you put anybody in that slot, they're going to look to do the same exact thing, just because you have to switch things up. You have to figure it out. Although Canada can succeed, and we've succeeded to a degree in the past, you can't try to throw out the same quality of player when you have guys in Premier League, you have guys in Serie A, out there. It's like, let's test their strengths and bring them over here and see if it elevates the squad. I think that is a strong legacy to kind of hold your hat on. And also, getting out of that group stage. I don't think it's anything to to sneeze at. It's a World Cup. Even though I liked his philosophy of like we're treating this as two separate tournaments, getting out of the group and then from there on the knockout. It's still just, you see it here in Copa America, it's still anybody's game. So I think getting out of that, especially if you remember, not even making it to the World Cup prior, right? Like that whole thing where we have Taylor Twellman go on a huge rant and all that. So he had a lot of pressure in that regard stacked up against him, but the new signings and really opening up that player pool and, showing face at the World Cup, I think that'll be his legacy. And then, of course, the Dos a Cero.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because you look at the level of competition, and Jurgen Klinsmann made this point. You look at the level of competition that the U.S. got these wins against, and it's not really as impressive as, say, a bigger country. I think that's kind of the whole discussion, another discussion that we need to have. You don't need to qualify for the World Cup, so that should give you an opportunity to schedule friendlies if you can against bigger countries. Take some time when these bigger countries trying to qualify have a pause on their federation qualifying paths and schedule friendlies against them. Bring them to the U.S. or go overseas. If you bring them to the U.S., use it as a dress rehearsal for the World Cup. Pack stadiums out. Don't overcharge people, but pack stadiums out. Get people in the doors. Bring some quality opponents stateside and let them test their mettle against a level of opponent that they otherwise wouldn't face, because you have the opportunity. You have a lot of gaps open in the schedule. I mean, granted, you have Gold Cup, you have Nations League, and all of that. You have spots open. You have availability. Bring in some quality opponents. Bring in opponents that you would face in the World Cup. Schedule some big time opponents. Don't just pad your record against CONCACAF, some of the minnows of CONCACAF. Challenge yourselves. Prepare yourself for this pivotal moment you have coming up in a couple of years and leading up to 2026. And I hope that the next manager, whoever that is, can work hand in hand with the federation to schedule matches like that.
Do you think people have finally realized that beating Mexico as many times as you beat Mexico is not the same
as good as you think,
as if you had done it 20 years ago or 30 years ago? I think that's where it's like, I mean, look, they're great wins. Like, you won trophies, and I'll got to be fair. We're judging Atlanta. We're judging clubs on the same thing. Like, trophies are trophies. That's what you're playing for. So you got to give them credit for that. But like, Mexico is not Mexico anymore right now. And they haven't been for a long time, admittedly, since Berhalter took over. And I would argue probably a little bit before that. If that's your claim to fame, that's not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Mexico's just keep going back to the well that they've drunk from already. They just hired Javier Aguirre for the third time, I think.
Again.
And now demoted Jimmy Lozano to an assistant. Lozano was resumed the spot for 2030. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Sydney was saying, though, and the way that I kind of look at it as far as, bringing in friendlies to play up against and all of that, here's especially bring up Mexico. And I think that's a good thing to bring up. Manager, aside, if we were to look at who's rebuilding their squad better and faster, U.S. or Mexico, I think the favor right now is going to lean towards Mexico, because this, I feel like L3, it's like a shocker that they're still in this rut that they're in, versus America. I don't know if we necessarily still give a lot of credence to what this squad can do, because they just haven't really shown us anything outside of a couple Gold Cups and then qualifying for Copa America and getting out of a group stage. So if I'm not shying away from anything, it's that, I think Mexico is on the mend and is going to rebuild faster than America can. And to Sydney's point, we're bringing in the international friendlies. I think, hot take here, I think we need to do so enough to get that squad ready where it is an afterthought going up against Trinidad and Tobago, Panama, that we can throw in the C squad if we need to, and we're going to run the floor with them. Those matches need to be an afterthought moving forward, that it's no brainer that we're going to win, because we're not seeing that, and that's going to be the real key difference maker, in my opinion, when it comes to really judging the squad moving forward, where we can look at fill in the blank island or, nation that comes in up against us, that it's not
Caicos.
Right. Like that needs to be something that why are we even tuning in unless it's just to see a dunking from, the men's national team.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this real quick. Gregg Berhalter as Atlanta United head coach, yay or no?
No. And I'm
Kick
not
him out of this. Kick him out of this.
Get out. Yeah, you banned. No. And I'm not just saying that to be like the
Let's
hot
put it
take.
out there.
I've never ever liked Berhalter's tactics as a coach. I've never liked the tactics at all. And going back to what people were saying in the chat, like I do feel like he settles in a little too much and becomes more of a friend. Me and Tony had this conversation the other day, and Brian today. The only standout moment that I can remember to where Berhalter did a coaching thing, a coaching move, was back in 2020 when the men's national team was playing in Nashville, and it was as the world was opening back up, and Weston McKennie decided to go for a jog or something in the middle of Nashville.
Yeah.
And he got suspended from the next game or two.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And it's like, okay, well then, okay, you're putting your big boy pants on. You're saying, no, I'm in charge. I told y'all these are the rules, period. And I don't care that you're Weston McKennie. You're out. Like, and that's the kind of tone that you have to set. But that fell off rapidly after 2021. And then he never got it back. So no, not in Atlanta. Not in Atlanta.
Definitely not Atlanta. I think he overstayed his welcome for the national team. I don't know. I've heard a couple like murmurings as far as where he may go next. But I feel like all those are way too soon to, for any real credibility. But in my opinion, overstaying that welcome means that if it's thank you for your service after the World Cup, you still, whether it's nepotism or not, you still find your way on the staff somewhat if you care to, whether it's like player development, player personnel, because I think if, in his mind, the best thing he did was how everybody flowed together inside the squad, how we're a team, how we're a family, all these things, right? And that's cool and all, but when it comes to results and when it comes to potentially disciplinary action or whatever, because of negligence or because of yellow cards, whatever, fill in the blank, he doesn't fill that manager role as far as that's concerned. Like you were saying, I think it was Tommy, if you said it, but it's like nobody needs to necessarily hate their coach that they're playing for, but having that respect of like, I don't want to let this guy down, throwing it to Atlanta United. That's why he had so many, Spanish men coming up and wanting to play for Tata. That the legend that was Tata was so high. These guys didn't want to let this man down. They wanted to learn from the maestro himself. So there wasn't that feel, I'll say, with Gregg Berhalter that said, this guy is worth his weight in gold, to where if we do something against him versus not even Tata, right? Like look at Jose Mourinho, look at Gallardo, right? Like these are legends where you're like, I can't mess up because that might mean I don't start. That might mean I don't even smell the bench, because I can't disappoint this guy. And I think just, I don't know, having anything to do with athletics, like you look to your manager as a father figure. And if you don't necessarily have that fine line of like respect, but also, disciplinary to kind of keep you in that straight and narrow, then you're not going to necessarily run through a wall for that person.
Yep. 100%. So pivoting, because I know we could talk about U.S. soccer all night. And I'm sure we'll come back to it. But, and Tony, obviously I told you before you jump in, you're on here for the rest of the night. But as far as other Atlanta United news, we have to kind of jump back into that as well, because it's been a busy week, even though it got overshadowed by the Open Cup bullcrap. Atlanta's looking at a new player. Sydney, I know you've looked at him. Tommy, I know you've looked at him. We've got articles up on the website, but Alexi I think it's pronounced Miranchuk. I think
Yeah,
Are we
go
sure
with
it's
it.
not a hockey player?
We'll go with it.
That
he
sounds like
might
a hockey player.
he might be. Has played in Serie A in some capacity for 5 or 6 years now. But Sydney, I guess starting with you, what were your initial thoughts?
I like it. Goal contributions have been pretty healthy, during his time with Atalanta and Torino. By the way,
Quit saying things
Elena's
so fancy. Just try to be always so fancy with how you say things.
I try my best. But no, I have to say Elena United's track record with Torino has been pretty good so
Yeah.
far.
I'll
So,
take that all day.
so if they can
Name
go
rhyme
back
with
to the world successfully again.
Martinez.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I saw some people saying he didn't start with Atalanta, which is okay. I mean, he's proven himself as, I guess, essentially as super sub with Atalanta. So I assume he's looking for a move to a place where he can become a starter and make a move to a place where he can contribute at a much higher level. And I guess why not MLS? He's 28 years old, so kind of in his prime. I know Garth said they're looking at players that otherwise wouldn't want to come to MLS or wouldn't otherwise play in MLS. I wonder if he meant looking at other leagues outside of the top 4 or 5. You don't see, you haven't seen Atlanta United go look toward these Asian leagues, the Russian league thus far. And maybe this opens up kind of a new pipeline for them where they can bring in players that play for other leagues that don't get the attention that other leagues do and go in that direction. But yeah, I'm pretty decent. I'm pretty okay with his numbers. I mean, they don't jump off the page at you, but at the same time, if you could get a contributor in here that can contribute at a high level, and plus you look at MLS, I feel like the quality of play isn't as high as you'll get with Serie A. Maybe a little more, slightly more comparable to the Russian Premier League in some respects. So I say go for it. Again, he's not quite at his prime or right at his prime. He's 20 years old, but maybe with some starting minutes, he can perform at a much higher level for you. I mean, he can't be the only name you look at. Carlos said they're talking to 15 players right now, essentially. So I'm sure there's other names that will come up, other rumors that will come out, but this is one and looks pretty decent. I guess, at least from my vantage point. I don't know what you guys think, but it wouldn't
That's
hurt.
the first person that we're having, and
Yeah.
you look at his stats. Cool. I think Atlanta fans are broken because of the injuries, right? Like we've seen so many injuries to so many of our players here.
2022 was a
over
tough
the
year,
pa-
man.
Yeah, I mean, he had that tough year, and then like when anyone gets hurt, like you're seeing, oh, see, it's the turf, it's this, where's the where's the physios? Why is everybody getting hurt? This just can't be us. And you see the fan base is broken, and Bruno brought it up in Spaces last night. He brings it up in the chat again. Many injuries, and I think he said like a couple of the injuries he had kept him out for like 40 days. I think each of them, like that's gonna happen here. I mean, injuries happen, and it's rare that everyone stays healthy all the time. Brooks Lennon slipped down a banana peel and got hurt.
Yeah,
Right, got
great
injured.
Mario
So,
Karted, man.
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, things happen here. Is that the first rumor?
The first
I'm
rumor
liking
that
where
I
they're
see-
going.
Oh yeah.
Right, like the first, like I know there was one last week of a striker or 2 weeks ago that was out there, and really haven't heard much about it since. But at least what I've seen for the first two, we're in the right path. And I mentioned this on Spaces, but go listen to Extra Time. Go listen to what Tom Bogart's saying. That they've got a certain amount of money allocated to the Almada and Gigi replacement. So, and he said he wouldn't say the amount. So apparently he has an idea of how much they're allocating to each of these replacements. But I'm sure it's a decent amount here, right? And they've got to get this right. They've got to get the manager. They got to get these two spots correct. And still, then, even with this, you'll still have likely one more DP that you will be able to bring in next season when you buy down, Gregerson or whoever they end up doing for accounting purposes. So you still are going to be able to do this. And, Zil put this in here, and I think someone asked that question. I don't know who it was. Tyler, I don't know if it was you or not, about bringing DPs without a manager. I think someone asked spoke of that, right?
So yeah, that was my question, and it was essentially
Good
like
question.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
No problem.
It was and Tony, I want to get your thoughts too, but it was yeah, like how do the players that you're looking at now, how are they influenced by the whole coaching search? Like, how does that strategy kind of fit together? And I wish I gotten a little bit more of an elaborate answer, but he essentially said that when they go to these players, they have to sell them on the philosophy of the club. And by philosophy of the club, it was, again, paraphrasing here, essentially meant as, the attacking kind of fun style of football, the always on the front foot. You got Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you got the fans, you have the brand, you have everything that you've got in Atlanta. That's what they're selling the players on, because they have to go into it and say, like, well, yeah, uncertainty, absolutely. If you feel uncertain because we don't have a coach, that's fair. But this is what we have going on. This is what we're trying to do and trying to build. And you kind of have to trust us a little bit. So the fact that they're talking to approximately 15 clubs, 15 players, whatever, I think it says a lot in terms of like just how big the feelers are and what they're trying to do. Tony, what you got?
Right now I'm thinking about EAFC, formerly known as FIFA, right? You're across the desk with some potential player contract, and you're negotiating prospect. Are you crucial, important playing time? What are you? And I think as a fan looking towards any of these signings overseas coming in, you're optimistic, of course, because you hear Atalanta, you hear, Serie A, you hear, honestly, leagues that care more or less than what the MLS has shown that they care. So you have faith, right? You're hopeful, wishful thinking. But as a fan and also looking at player development, you also don't want to sign a guy for him to be wishy-washy coming off the bench, or sign a guy to eventually just be straight towards a bench, because of the fact that you still don't have a manager. You still don't have an identity as far as what your play style is going to be, because you're looking at, what is it, number 7 or 9 and a number 10 spot. Those are huge. That's pivotal for a club moving forward in general. So it's like, just depending on who you sign there could really open up what type of formation are we playing under, depending on who takes control of those numbers. So again, you're optimistic. You hope that, overall, when it comes to recruiting, you're getting, just a ball handler and, an athlete overall. But I'm kind of on that fence as well with Zilf. It's like, but manager, but who are we getting in to? Because this isn't the national team where you have your all-star cast where you're just getting to pick and choose from. This is, you have what you have. And as a manager coming in, depending on however many signings they do, you're forced to kind of figure it out. And especially with these DP contracts, unless you're somebody that's not Miami, right? Like, you're locking into a DP contract. That's not something that you're necessarily one and done. All right, let's get Messi in. It's potentially going to be the next 3 years of your club. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm still waiting to see a manager, because for me, as much as I love this club, I'm writing off this season. I mean, US Open Cup was my real last hurrah as far as if we were going to do something. And it's not to say that I'm not going to support. It's not to say I'm going to love this squad, especially moving over towards Leagues Cup, because technically that is still its only thing. That's its own thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this like the Hawks. Are we rebuilding or what?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where
rebuilding. Let's not compare ourselves to the Hawks. I just watched them give away DeJounte Murray and a guy they traded 4 second-round picks for, and just said, "Here, go home. Just leave.
Yeah.
Just don't go. We're not even going to try and keep you. Just get the hell out." So no, we're not.
But it's the in-between phase is what I'm trying to say. It's the in-between phase. What are we? Is it complicated? Or are we dating?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's legit. I mean, I think that the goal is to win next year, right? I think it is. And, I don't want to sound, anything negative against Rob, because I appreciate what he's been thrown into twice, right? This is twice that he's been thrown into these situations. I think overall, you need someone different to come in and have a culture change. You know, I think you just need a shock to the system. And Rob can stay in that if he wants to, or he can move on to that, you know. But I think that they just need something new, right? And I just feel like Rob's been part of the old regimes here, and having him as the manager, and if this turns bad at 5 games into the season next year, the fans are going to be pissed. The fans are going to say, we wanted change here, and we're leaving it up to a guy that doesn't have much, you know, head manager experience, right?
Right.
And again, fans are crazy. We're all crazy, right? That's why they call us fanatics. But I just feel like there has to be a culture shock here. And there was a culture shock. When Tata left and Frank DeBoer came in, there was a
100%.
shock to that system. A lot of players weren't happy. A lot of players were talking a lot of trash, you know, behind, you know, to other outlets. Those players ended up out like there. But I feel like things are where we are right now. I think if you can make that change and get the right guy in here, and it sounds like Garth is changing the way that this team is run, right? It's not buy a DP and sell him in 2 years. It's buy a DP and keep him here for possibly 4 to 5 years, and just make tweaks every window to make your team better. Just what Seattle did. Just like what you're seeing the Columbus Crew are. The Crew are the new Seattle. That's how I look at it, right? And it's just you find these franchises, you know, every couple of years. It's like, I want to be that. And Atlanta was that there for a little bit, right? They made some tweaks here and there. And Seattle's made the tweaks every year, and they were in the finals. They were, you know, consistently making, you know, conference finals. Atlanta just needs that shock to the system, and you're getting it with the players. You're possibly getting it with a new manager here. And I know Dukes and Bell, you know, asked Garth about it, and Garth's like, yeah, we don't want to be a selling team. Like, obviously it's great that we make money off these players, but we want stability here. And that's all the fans want. They want stability, right? It's not just because you just want to have your or your jersey be relevant for, you know, more than 2 years. Sorry, your Moreno jersey, Tyler, but you want to be able to, you know that things are working, and you have a lineup here, and it's just every season, every window, just make a couple changes if needed, and if you need to get a guy out, then you get a guy out. So I like what they're doing here, but I still think the ultimate end here is you need a new manager to come in here, and then you're off.
You conclude to exactly what I feel like I'm saying, and I think a lot of, you know, fan base that's watching is saying as well. I think, speaking to your culture shock and your real shift, I think it would behoove you, if you're Atlanta United, to get a name. And when I say a name, I'm not necessarily, you know, swinging for the fences and bringing in the Mourinhos, although I think that would be freaking amazing. I mean, are you kidding me? But having a name that's established in the sense that no matter what, this is our guy. We're going to let him figure it out, because then I think you're more so opened up to those conversations of, like you said, those little tweaks here and there. You're going to get that athlete in there. You're going to get that DP slot taken care of. And no matter what, though, this is the guy that we are entrusting to rebuild that. They have had the chance, though, and I think this is not just, you know, United, but me being an Atlanta fan in general, that kind of aura of when it comes to coaching, what we do and tend to not do. The sad thing is they've had those opportunities before, especially right off the heels when Tata left. So I know we're talking about new personnel as far as the front office is concerned. So I'm almost like the shame you once right now, where it's like, I'm hoping Garth really does have that secondary approach to say, we had this opportunity and we squanched it. Let's go back to the well, and let's bring in that legacy, if you will, of a manager where we can confidently say, this is our guy, thick or thin, and we're going to make it work, because we've never had a problem when it comes to bringing the 11 on the field as far as that talent. You've seen the records that we've broken as far as selling them off. So clearly we can catch them, but are we releasing them too soon instead of building around them? Are we, you know, again, the manager is going to dictate everything, like you said.
So guys, look at the schedule. we talk about Leagues Cup just a little bit, but there are 3 matches left before Leagues Cup. If Montreal on Saturday, you have NYCFC at home. We have back-to-back home matches after that. 17th against NYCFC, and then July 20th against Columbus Crew. Looking at those 3 matches, knowing that, okay, you're missing 2 DPs and your talent is at a very high deficiency right now, to see that Lady United are in 10th place, how many points do you think they can get from these next 3 matches? Just looking at myself, considering the level of quality of teams they are facing, I mean, maybe 2 points, I think. I don't know if you're going to beat Columbus at home.
2?
But yeah, exactly.
So you're saying we're going to draw? You think we're going to get? I get the draw maybe against Montreal, but you think we're going to draw against New York or Columbus?
I feel like you have a better chance of drawing against New York City, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think you'll lose all 3 matches, but you'll get at least a point or 2 out. If that's being optimistic, I'm being optimistic. Looking at what's coming up. That's just where I think. What do you guys think? Am I wrong?
As a betting man, I'm kind of with those odds right there. Over under on 2. I'm not mad at that, honestly. I think you're lucky. Joseph Martinez is going to show up playing against this club, so you're lucky to get a draw out of that because he's probably going to fetch a goal. And then, I agree with Sydney. It's like you really expect going at Columbus and winning out of that one, and then, with New York, it's always wishy-washy with that. So I think 2 is the number, realistically.
Tommy, what do you got?
If there was one number I would say out of all these, like the possible ones, 2 would be the one that I think it has no chance of happening. I think it's either 1 or 3. I think it's either you draw in Montreal, or you win. I don't see. I'm coming in for the Columbus game, which will be fun, but I don't think anything's gonna. I'm ready. I'm ready to cry. If I was a betting man, I would say 0.
So you're saying
okay. I am a betting man. Fine. I'm a gambler. Thank you, Atlanta United, for winning me tons of money over the weekend. I say 0.
You're saying the under because you even threw out 1 or 3. That's under.
Man.
Sorry.
God, I feel like it's my job to come in here and do what I always do. Be positive.
9. They're going to get 9 points. And they're going to win Leagues Cup. They're going to win Leagues Cup, too. Undefeated in Leagues Cup.
Freaking betting all the time. Whatever. 3. We'll win against New York. That's it. That's all I got.
Against New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not beating Columbus. No. And I just don't think you're going to go to Montreal and battle, which we'll talk about that now, battle Joseph, like Tony was saying, and get anything out of it. I mean, you're lucky if you get a point, but I think you can at least do something against New York and maybe get I don't know, a little bit of, I guess, saving grace before you go into the Leagues Cup break. Because after that, you've got to put your freaking foot to the floor and go all in. So Bruno said -2 points.
Yeah. Shots fired. Now, something that I'm curious of, right? Because I think, again, realistically, if we're going to do anything, U.S. Open Cup was the opportunity. But what Leagues Cup with the potential 2 cups that are left, right? That's the only other opportunity that I feel like we seriously do something out of the 2 is what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, it's a quicker route.
Yeah,
it's a quicker route.
Yeah,
there's less games you got to play. I mean, they are very inconveniently timed, but yeah, I mean, you've got to put everything into it. If that means that you have to throw part of the end of the season, I mean, you've got to go in. You've got to learn your lesson from the Open Cup.
But you got to get players in. You don't have a chance with this lineup.
I agree, but thankfully,
I agree.
You can get players in starting technically before the Open Cup. I mean, before the Leagues Cup. So
I get it. I mean, start working OT. Carlos, Garth, stay off 92.9. Your phone might ring at any moment. Just skip everything. Actions speak louder than words.
I like it. I agree. The good thing is, technically, some players they could come in and they could be training by themselves or whatever
Yeah.
before July 18th.
Yeah,
So
they
at
just
least
can't
they're
play.
here getting acclimated and all that. That's just a hope, a fingers crossed kind of moment. Dylan asked earlier about the rumored, number 10 signing, asking if he fit into the overall kind of vibe and vision that Garth has. I would say yes, and I would also tell Dylan and anybody else. I put the link up here. I'll put it up again. Go check out the article that Henry wrote over on the website. There's a video on there that's got the dude's highlights. And I think if you look at the highlights, you can kind of see the way the team wants to play and why they want to add him in. So yeah, go check that out. Montreal. We've gone over it over and over again, but in terms of a prediction, Tony, what are you thinking?
Hey, I'm
Score.
signing. I'm siding with the guy on my right. It's going to be a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1-1.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Atlanta scores, or Montreal scores. I think Joseph will get his, I'm sure. But I think Atlanta do what they've been doing over the past few matches. I think they nick a goal at the end, and this time will be to salvage a point on the road. Montreal haven't been great at home over the past few weeks. Actually, no, they've been decent at home over the past few weeks. I stand corrected. I think they're 2
They drew 1-1.
4. Yeah, they drew 1-1, but they came back. They scored a late goal, so they're 2-4, I believe, in the last 6 matches at Stade Saputo. So they've been decent at home in recent matches. Not great, but decent. So they have that going for them. But I mean, this isn't a great team in Montreal, so I think it'll be a very low scoring affair, 1-1.
Yeah.
Atlanta always seems to get a goal. Like it, as bad as they could be at some points, they somehow will get a goal. With that said, Atlanta in Canada never feels like it's anything good ever happens when they go over there. The games don't go well. Players get heated. Players forget their passports. A lot of things happen when Atlanta goes to Canada. So with that said, Atlanta loses 3-1.
Yo.
3-1. This pains my soul, man.
Say
2-1. 2-1 Montreal. I think it, like everybody says, Atlanta has a goal in them. Even if it's because they decide to start playing with urgency in the last 15 minutes, they're going to get a goal. But I just don't think they can keep Montreal out. And that last match, not the Open Cup, but the one before, that was awful. That was awful. Like the second 45 minutes of that match was
terrible,
atrocious. So, I mean, either you come out and you keep playing that way, or you come out with a chip on your shoulder and you freaking fix it all. But the Open Cup then did not give me much hope that they're going to fix it. So I don't know. But yeah, 2-1 Montreal.
No.
I hate that. So, all right. Any final thoughts? Anybody got anything?
Final thought would be, I don't know if you talked about it before I got on, but just honestly, speaking of the last match, what Open Cup looks like in the future, where who and what are they sending, if at all, any first, squad MLS club? Because I think to me, that's the most deflating thing about this most previous loss is that you don't necessarily know if you'll be back in the tournament.
Yeah. I don't think that they would take, it would take a brass pair for them to go and then try to take it away again.
Yeah.
Right. Or make it even less than it is right now. They tried to do it last December. We saw the pushback. They eventually settled on this agreement. Atlanta was lucky enough, I guess, to end up being one of the teams that played in it. And then they squandered that chance. So, I mean, I don't think they make it any worse. And Atlanta may find themselves in it next year because they, don't win a trophy. They don't qualify for Champions Cup, whatever. But I find it hard that at least in the next 2 or 3 years, I find it hard to think that it would actually come back to what it should be, which is every team in it, unfortunately. So
my final thought is I hope they bring in players that can make this team better. And yes, it's okay to bring in players without a manager. It's not Carlos Bocanegra's fault. If you should be upset at somebody, be upset at Garth Lagerwey because he's Carlos Bocanegra's boss and he signed off on this approach. So stop blaming Carlos Bocanegra for doing his job. That's my final thought.
That's a little bit of
I
a
was a
hot
little,
take
I
coming
was a
from
little,
Sydney.
I was a little triggered by
You
some
sure
of
about
the. I was a little bit triggered by some of the narrative that I've been seeing about, his quote. So, I guess that's my final thought.
Hey, there you go. That's
I'm
you better drop the mic.
I'm looking at your Venmo history right now, and there's this person that sent you money, Boca Boca,
Stop.
$200.
Hey, to back
You
up
could be
your
bought
boy,
for that little.
First off,
to back up your boy, I have
Two
seen
bills?
a lot of takes with shots being fired at certain personnel where it's like, guys, are you watching the state of play lately? Because some people I don't think are necessarily to blame when you sell off a GG, when you sell off Almada or Wiley or whatever. I don't think you look at that and go, oh, there's our season, right? Like I think some of those moves, I think it's a little unfair to judge.
Yeah, I mean, because some of them are out of at least one of them, arguably two, were out of almost necessity, and that's where you have to look at Garth Lagerwey. And I think me and Milan kind of were going back and forth on this on Spaces the other day, but like Garth still does have a boss that he has to answer to, and if look, we know because people also want to put the blame on Arthur Blank and say, well, he's so disconnected from everything. I don't want him to have his finger in it all. First of all,
98 years old.
right? He's ancient, and I love the man, but he's ancient. He doesn't need to be meddling in the daily affairs of Atlanta United. That being said, he put Garth there to do the job. If Garth were to go to Arthur says, "Hey, how's it going?" and Garth were to say, "Well, we have this offer for almost double our money for our striker." He wanted to do it, and we kept him here more or less against his will because he wanted to make extra money. We said no and lost out on essentially $4 million in profit. Arthur Blank would be like, what the freaking heck are you doing in this position? Right.
Especially when that guy gets injured.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. The next game, the very first game. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at it from that perspective as well. Nobody wanted to lose Giakoumakis. Carlos Bocanegra even said it yesterday. This wasn't something that was as planned. Like Almada, they knew kind of like in the winter, summer, there was interest. We kind of had that vibe. Giakoumakis, not so much. Sometimes it just happens that way, and you've just gotta figure it out. And Bocanegra, to his credit, also said it sucks from our perspective because we can't replace them until July 18th, but we can't also hold the player until July 18th because that's not how the transfer windows work.
right.
They're not lined up, and it sucks. But that's the boat that we're in, and we have to do our best with what we've got.
Or the yacht.
And I hope you hit on them
Right.
in July. So, all
Boat
right.
or yacht that we're in.
Oh yeah, a very big money yacht.
Buy our gear, guys.
Yes,
Scarsandspikes.com not slash shop, but just click shop. Scarsandspikes.com, patreon.com/scarsandspikes.
And join the Patreon because we're going to do a fun watch along.
Well, it
Yeah.
depends on what your meaning of fun is. So.
No, for
Will
every
be fun.
every goal scored in the game, Tyler's going to eat an entire order of poutine for each goal.
No, not doing that again. Not well, as long as somebody's not making drinks for me.
Be
then
fun for somebody, but not Tyler.
Where am I going to get poutine from? You know what it took to make that stuff last time? We
Buy
did this
something from
podcast?
France. I mean, Canada. Do overnight shipping.
Oh, right. With
I
what
got a
money?
place down the street from us that's got great poutine.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't. Tony, I mean, Sydney, have y'all ever seen poutine in Atlanta?
Not
No.
yeah, not in this state. I gotta travel outwards to get that.
Yeah.
A little bit north.
All right, guys. Yeah, y'all go to the website, get you some merch, get you some gear, get you a hat, cup, mug, shirt, etc. Go to the website, scarfsandspikes.com. and join the Patreon. Come hang out with us on the watch along. Tony, we appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yes,
I know you're not a big social media guy, but do you want to give the promo? Anything you want to say?
Oh no, man! I just appreciate being on again. It's always a pleasure. I love doing the live shows. Man, that's a hoot. Whenever throw up the bat signal, I'll be there. I'm here for it. No, it's just a good time at the Tony Leon. If you're wanting to catch along, my website, thetonyleon.com. If you need a host, I'm here for you. But no, this was fun, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And let me hit on this really quick because this popped up. And I know this is like the weirdest outro ever. Gray.
I like that you're going to hit this. Yeah.
Yeah. Gray saying and Gray also of Scars and Spikes said in his interview with Dukes and Bell, Garth mentioned the potential new rule that could allow us to expand our cap by 30% thanks to the Wiley sale. Any updates on that? Yes. Bocanegra last night said that is, they expect it to happen, but they don't know if it's going to be this summer or in the winter because the board of directors or whatever they're called, the Illuminati that run MLS, I guess, have to go and they have to vote on it. So potentially it could happen this summer to where they could apply that now in this window. From his tone of voice and his vibe, it didn't really seem like something that was like imminently going to happen, but he did say, yes, that is supposed to be happening. They are planning on it eventually, whether it's summer or the winter. So don't know when, but it is allegedly happening. Pretty
hey,
sure.
Miami, will this rule help you? Oh, it will? Cool. Yeah, we're in. We're in. Start the rule.
Let's go.
Started clicking.
All right. I think we're out, right?
Drop the mic. Yeah, you go ahead and roll the music. We appreciate it, guys. Thank y'all for hanging out with us.
Thanks for watching, by the way.
Watching.
Jürgen Damm. Thanks for stopping on.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to do that, man. You let me forget, even though you reminded me like a minute before we went live. I'm so sorry. Tony, did you see Jürgen?
Someone was going at it with Mike Conti today.
Oh, Jürgen.
And like they were just going back for like, what players did we let go for free? And I was like, oh, I can. Anytime you could use a Jürgen Damm gif, like it's just that one where he's dancing. Because he like starts just showing up under the flag, and he's dancing. Like you got to use it. So a Jürgen Damm gif a day keeps, I don't know, old age away.
Old
age away.
Whatever.
It makes you feel younger and faster
and stronger.
No, he wasn't very strong. He was just fast.
Very fast. Go watch Copa America, Colombia versus Uruguay right now, 37th minute. We will catch y'all this weekend.
See ya.